All right. We're back here in the Rock Cave, right? Here it's Song of the Day. Everyone knows what today is, don't we? Yep, it's the return of the jacket. Haven't worn this in a couple of weeks. Still fits, even during COVID. That can only mean one thing, right, people? It's Octane Friday. Whew. And it's a good one today. First, let me say, we're getting close to a milestone here at Song of the Day. The end of next week, we'll do our 100th episode. And we're going to do something fun for that. So stay tuned. I'll keep you informed, so make sure you pay attention. But yesterday, I was in the car. It seems like the car is the best time to play music, isn't it? And I heard a Jethro Tull song, Mother Goose. And I just cranked that up, which then led to playing a few other of my favorites from Jethro Tull. And I said, it's just so good. We've barely scratched the surface here at Song of the Day. So much great music out there that we haven't even touched. So I'm excited to just keep on going because, man, I just listened to that yesterday and I was like, Jethro Tull, this is amazing. So anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll put that on our list and we'll talk about it. So what do we got going on today? Well, it's actually yesterday's date, but July 9th was Bon Scott's birthday. Remember Bon Scott, lead singer of AC/DC, died in February of 1980, death by misadventure, which is how they characterize things not in the United States, usually related to alcohol or drugs. Who was he? He was born in Scotland, moved to Australia when he was 6 years old, and went to school there, dropped out when he was 15, got into some trouble with the law as a teenager, spent some time in the juvenile detention system. He was arrested for giving a false name and address to police, for escaping from custody, for unlawful carnal knowledge. Remember that album title from Van Halen? It's an actual thing. And also stole 12 gallons of gasoline. So he was pretty much, and that pretty much followed him everywhere. He couldn't get into the army because he was socially maladjusted. He was in a couple of bands. He was in the Spectres. He formed that band when he was 18. He was in a band called the Valentines, and then one called Fraternity. He did get into a pretty serious motorcycle accident after drinking and getting into a fight with that band, that last band, and it required some recuperation. That's when it was brought to his attention that AC/DC was looking for a vocalist. So those guys meet up, and they kind of hit it off right off the bat, only because the Young brothers, Malcolm and Angus, were also from Scotland, so they kind of had a bond there. So their main concern when they met him was that he was, quote, too old to rock at age 28. Turns out they were wrong. So the discography with Bon Scott as the lead singer, Sarah always says that she can't tell the difference between who's singing what between him and Brian Johnson, which is fair, considering that Brian Johnson was singing for an AC/DC cover band when they hired him after Bon Scott's death. In any event, they put out a ton of records in a short period of time, as was the thing in the 1970s. 1975 debut album High Voltage comes out only in Australia. And then also that year they put out an album called TNT, only in Australia. High Voltage is probably my favorite AC/DC song of the Bon Scott era. That has a ton of great songs on it. It's a long way to the top. The Jack, Live Wire. So you want to be a rock and roll singer. These are all some great songs on there. So 1976, they get signed to Atlantic Records internationally. And so that's when they put out High Voltage internationally, okay? and that's 1976. Also in 1976, they put out Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap, but that's international, but not in the United States. The United States arm of Atlantic says, we don't like this. It's all about punk now, or disco, or whatever it was. And they're like, we're not going to release this in the United States. So Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap. The reason why, when I read this, I was like, I don't remember listening to this when I was 10. When I was 8. I remember it more when I was like 11. And that's true. That's because it wasn't until they were already big and after his death, they put out Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap as an album in 1981. And that's when I remember hearing that song and not ever really knowing what the lyrics were. I was like, I would just sing Dirty Deeds and their Dunder G. Dunder G. I didn't know what they were saying. Anyway, so we got 1977, Let There Be Rock. And they still weren't cracking in the United States, but they were big in Australia. They had been on TV regularly on a show called Countdown, and so they were a really big act in Australia all through the 70s. And then 1978, you got Powerage, and then 1979, you get Highway to Hell. And Highway to Hell is their first breakthrough in the United States. It goes to number 13 or 17, and song, obviously, Highway to Hell is huge in the United States. And then soon thereafter, he dies. And then Brian Johnson takes over, as we all know, and they put out Back in Black 5 months after his death. And it's all history from there. So, what do you got for Bon Scott era AC/DC? You got a lot of material here. You got It's a Long Way to the Top. You got the ones I talked about, the Jack, Live Wire, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Singer. You got Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap. You got Big Balls. That's a catchy tune. There is a video out there of someone made with SpongeBob to that song. It's pretty hysterical if you ever get a chance to check that out. Problem Child, Ride On, A Whole Lot of Rosie, Let There Be Rock, Rock and Roll Damnation, Sin City. What else? Girls Got Rhythm, Highway to Hell. That's basically a lot of them, right? So lots to choose from. It's pretty clear for me, because like I said, High Voltage is clearly my favorite album from AC/DC early years. And it's got to be It's a Long Way to Their Top. It was their first single in Australia. It's a great video. I mean, bagpipes? Come on, really? So that's your song of the day. It's Octane Friday, so you got to turn that up. I mean, who's not going to turn up some AC/DC, right? And there's a friend of mine on Facebook out there, Stephanie, right? Didn't you post something today or yesterday? There's a video of 1,000 musicians playing AC/DC. Check that out. If I can find the link, I'll put it down below, but that's pretty cool. Anyway, AC/DC, Octane Friday. It's Friday. Enjoy it. As usual, see you on the flip side.